All right, guys, this lesson is a review of 9-4. It is just a review, so you'll have that online or in your notes if you need it. We're going to do a few problems, and this is solving quadratics by factoring. So if you get a quadratic like this, c squared equals 5c. This is intended to be an extremely easy problem, but I've found over the years that it actually confuses students. So here's an example to help you. Remember that every single quadratic equation needs to be set equal to 0. And here's where I'm going to catch people that have not been following closely this last semester. Um, C squareds and C's don't combine at all. You've got to leave them separate as c squared minus 5c equals 0. Remember, set every quadratic equation equal to 0. This is where everybody gets stuck. They're like, wait a second, it doesn't look like a trinomial or anything else. Well, it's a binomial. And you have to remember that every time you factor, you always start with one other thing. What's that? Looking for a GCF. In this case, both of them have a GCF of C. So if I divide out a C, I get C parentheses C minus 5 equals 0. Now, because this is a factoring problem, if it's an equal sign in it, you solve with the zero product property. So what's the first piece of multiplication? The C. What's the second piece of multiplication? C minus 5. You set each piece of multiplication equal to 0, and then if necessary, you can solve further. The C is already equal to 0, so there's one answer. But the C minus 5 needs to be solved further by adding 5 to both sides, and C equals 5. You can check those by plugging them in, but those are the two answers. All right, so there's number one. How do you handle binomials? If it's just GCF factoring, there's an example of that. Don't forget, you might also be able to use difference of squares factoring. Do you have two perfect squares with a minus in the middle? You might review your notes on that. Guys, this is what makes good students at this point with the circumstances that we're under. Go back and review your notes in chapter 8. Do not just come screaming to a friend or even to me unless you've at least looked back at some previous notes to try to refresh your memory of it. It'll save you a lot of time and it's going to respark those brain cells to help you. Now, let's do the most difficult kind of problem. I believe there's a couple of them like this. 3h squared plus 17h equals negative 10. Okay, so you can tell it's a quadratic trinomial, but it's not in standard form yet. It's not equal to 0. So we're going to have to add the 10. Again, guys, please don't get messed up on that. When you add 10, it does not combine with h's or h squareds. Instead, you get 3h squared plus 17h plus 10 equals 0. Draw your x, and let's put our numbers in. 3 times 10 is a times c. It's a positive 30. And a 17 for b. Well, think about what that's going to have to be. It's going to have to be 15 times 2. Might take you a little bit longer than me to come up with those, but you can do that. And then remember how we're going to use those numbers. We're going to split apart the 17h to 15h plus 2h plus 10 equals 0. And then we're going to group and factor by grouping so that I get a 3 times, or excuse me, a 3h times h plus 5 plus a 2. Don't forget that sign right there. Times h plus 5. You can tell that our parentheses match. So now I have a fully factored 3h plus 5 equal, or excuse me, at the first parentheses, times h, it's 3h plus 2. Sorry, I get mixed up. I'm trying to do too many things. Times h plus 5. I apologize for my handwriting looking bad. And that's all equal to 0. Equal to 0 over here. Now you use the zero product property. Take each parentheses, 3h plus 2, equal to 0, and solve for h, and h plus 5 equals 0. Well, this one's pretty easy. You just subtract the 5. and h equals -5. This one over here, a little bit more involved, -2 minus 2. 3h equals -2. Divide by 3. My other answer is -2/3. So there, right there circled, are my answers to this problem. That's a slightly more convoluted problem, but here are your steps. Set every quadratic equation that's got an equal sign in it equal to 0 in descending order on the left. Look what you get on the left and factor it based upon what we learned in chapter 8. Most of them will be AC method quadratic trinomials, but you might get a few binomials, which would require the difference of squares, or in some cases, like we just did, GCF factoring. So there's 2 examples that should help you. The worksheet just has 10 problems. Remember, please, guys, don't turn in your work by sending me a picture or anything like that via email. Instead, put it into your already titled and shared folder on a shared drive that's got your name on it and your class. Again, if you need any help with anything, just set up in advance some time with me. I'll try to be really flexible whenever I'm available. Hope things are going well. Enjoy the week, and I'll talk to you again soon.